Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 31st meeting of the BrentwoodRotary Club. For those of you visiting today, my name is Michael King, and I am the president of this club. We're down to 4 weeks, folks. The final 4. Smile's getting bigger and bigger. Today's invocation will be given by Dale Wellman, followed by Linus Sugis. Hey, Linus, come back. I've been off for 2 weeks, okay? Things have got to get back to the flow. Followed by Linus Sugis with the pledge and 4-way test. Larry Faust, it's good to see you back. Glad you're on the mend. Update on John Stokes. They have cleared up the infection, and he starts chemo next week. Good. Good week for the next 6 weeks. Yep. Beautiful day. Good to see you all. Let me in prayer, please. So God, we come together this hour as thankful people. Thankful for the life that you have given each one of us. Thankful that we live in this free land in the faith of our fathers and the vision of both our heritage and our hope here. Thankful for those who have served and paid the ultimate price that we may live free. And thankful for those who serve today at home and on foreign shores. Thankful that we are, as Rotarians, employed in service to our fellow man. And we give you thanks and blessings for him, for healing, and pray for healing for John Stokes. He continues to improve. Glad to see Larry Faust back. Thank you for his recovery. And we ask the Lord to continue to bless this club as we serve you in the service of ourselves. Amen. Let's take the flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of the things we think and say and do. First, to the truth. Second, to spare all concern. Third, will build goodwill and better friendships. Fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. All right. Our secretary, Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Our guest and visiting Rotary.
I'd be so happy to do so. First of all, we have a very famous podcast host and visiting Rotarian, Devin Enright. Deb, welcome to the Rotary Club of Brentwood today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us your most embarrassing moment real quick. Just kidding. We're happy to have you. My mic is super hot. Does anybody else think this is a little too hot? Okay, I'm going to hold it back over here. All right, and next up we have Steve. Is Steve in yet? I think he may still be out. Okay, we're going to go to the next one is Bill Walker is going to introduce our next guest, and he's across the room, of course. Let's start assigning you bringers of guest seats, so don't have to give as much exercise.
I'm honored today to have Bill Coyne with me. Bill was president of the club in 85 and 86. I'm trying to get back active again back in the club.
All right, Jeff Magruder is right over there. Jeff Magruder, is your desk here? Okay, Jeff, we're going to come back to you. We must come to class prepared, sir. All right, next is Mr. Fedwood.
Hey, Will, stand up. This is my son. Most of you know Will, and he was looking to go to the University of Tennessee. At the last moment, he decided on Beaumont. Beaumont Brookings. There we go. And I'm so proud of him. 4.0 and is his GPA. Got that from his mom. Just anything over a 2.0 for me was wasted.
And let's see, Jeff, nope. So do you have a guest that you would like to introduce? Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say to the group just for fun?
Go boss.
All right. And we are also happy to welcome once again Mr. Steve Hewlett, visiting Rotarian. Steve, you're sort of a visiting Rotarian. You're sort of a member.
What am I supposed to do now? Does everybody here know who Archie is? Archie.
The comic?
The royal baby. has proven that there's at least one Brit that knows how to exit.
And on that note, we will finish our visiting reviews of this.
Thank you. You know, Larry, maybe you should have told me keep no on. Okay, a couple announcements. There is a Rotary Board meeting immediately following this meeting, so all board members do not disappear because we need to have that meeting. The installation banquet. Yes, that installation banquet is June 27th. The registration email and the link to sign up for that will go up next week. So please make sure you sign up to it then. Now, before I get to a couple of these other announcements, we have a new Rotarian to introduce, who is actually an old Rotarian that we're going to introduce. Many of you know Mark McFerrin. He left us for a short period of time. And now Mark is back amongst us where he should have been all along. Mark, congratulations and welcome back. All right. Deb and Clendon has a boatload of stuff to do.
It's good to see everybody again. I would have done this 3 or 4 weeks ago. My apologies, I've been out, busy with work. This is related to Pancake Day, which was now a couple of months ago, but I did want to get this done. As we have in years past, we have extra pancake batter. And so as a thank you gift or prize or award to those who the procurement committee either helped the procurement committee or I saw kind of helping above and beyond, we want to award them, give them a 5-pound bag of our pancake batter. Oddly enough, that has about a $35 value if you were ever going to eat 5 pounds of batter. I mean, that 5 pounds makes about 40 of the old giant pancakes, about 40 of our pancakes. So enjoy it. It's good for about a year, and I'm going to give you the back of the box, so you actually know, don't use the whole package at one time. You'll never be able to eat it. So I'm going to read some names off. If you're not, well, if you're not here. For those who aren't here, I'll try to save it. Is Brian Goff here today? No. All right, well, forget Brian then. I know Gil Walker's here. I walked in with him. Gil did an enormous amount of help above and beyond. Thank you. There you go. Okay, very good. Michael Hyman. Michael's here. Michael gets the pancake batter because, yeah, once again, he showed us all that he's a clown. Larry Kane for all of his help on being fair to us, treating us with the sponsorship efforts. Thank you so much. Larry helped integrate in Pancake Day sponsors with golf, stepping down to help us lowly community folks. Randy Bostic. Is Randy here? No. I have to note this. I needed somebody last minute to drive to Murfreesboro and back on a moment's notice, and Randy raised his hand. Didn't ask for anything from it, so I'll save a bag for him. Linus Sujas, where's Linus? He's here. Oh, right there. Oh, you don't need the list. You need that. Set that there. Linus, for the last several years, has done an enormous amount of work getting all of our extra tables and chairs back and forth, and it's not a fun job. I did it one time, so thank you, Linus. Rick Finke, where's Rick? He's here. Rick, if you need an extra set of hands and somebody who will work hard, I'm volunteering Rick. He does an awesome job, and anytime I've needed anything, he said, I'll be there, I'll help. So thank you, Rick. John Helm, who is probably a little underwater trying to figure out all Pancake Day, but John did a lot of great things to help. Jane Covington is in the back for all of her work this year as one of the committee chair-ishes, helping, and she stayed awfully late. Is Julie Porter here? Yes, Julie, come on. Julie continuing to help run all the personnel activities. Is Rodney Lunn here? our former, current, maybe he's retired pancake czar. Maybe we're not going to let him be. Yeah, he's trying. Not yet, maybe. Just open it. Yeah, just rip the bottle.
No, just
Right.
instructions, that's all.
That's instructions, and go buy your own. And then Sarah Johnson, who's in Germany on our dime right now, so maybe we'll save her some or not. But thank you to everybody who helped out. We do have some left over, and you're going to need to pay close attention if you want to get your hands on it, which means you're going to need to raise some extra money for the golf tournament. It's going to be the only way you're going to be able to get one of these coveted bags. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Devin. Larry Kane is going to talk about said golf tournament. All right. 3 weeks from Monday, I think we're ready. So let me ask you a question. How many people in here have sold a sponsorship of some type? Raise your hand. All right, let's give ourselves a round of applause. I won't ask the obvious other questions. So why is this important to us as a club to get these sponsorships in and make more money than we did last year, et cetera, et cetera? Let me remind you of one thing that we announced in January to remind you that we have 3 funding partners this year. And these 3 partners are going to share equally whatever money we raise. The more we raise, the more they get. That's the most important thing for our, from a golfing standpoint, what we do at our club. So here are our 3 sponsors. We got the Boys and Girls Club in Middle Tennessee. We got our thrift store down in Franklin. And we got the Davis House Child Advocacy Center. All local, all scouted out and approved by our allocations committee. And so you stop to think, well, we're going to do all this money. We're going to give this money away. And they're going to be the primary recipients. So real quick, here's where we are right now. As of today, we're $12,000 short of our goal. We got 3 weeks. I'm optimistic we can get $12,000 in 3 weeks. I'm optimistic because we have 29 members who have chosen not to participate. And that doesn't mean they wrote a check for $200. That means they've done very little, and in fact, they've done nothing. So 29 members have come up a lot with our friends. We have 25, got 2 of those today, 25 2018 host sponsors still out. If you got a host sponsor from last year, please contact them and get them in. That should be easy. That should be the low fruit, if you want to call it that, that we get out. Our team standings, remember I told you when we did the teams 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you want to watch the A team? Well, the A team went from way down the list to 101 points. So they've sold over $10,000 worth of sponsorships. Curry and Jared have. So and Jerry just told me a while ago he has 2 more. So they're rolling. They're beating all the other teams that have 10 members each. Excuse me. The white team is jumping to the lead at 87.5 points. Yeah, you're right. Challenging McClendon's team at 87, and Carr is right in the back at 77.5. So if you're on one of these teams or one of the other teams, think about your team. We got 3 weeks. I'm not going to bug you till next week again, but sell something. If you haven't sold something, sell it. If you sold 1, 2, or 3, or 4, go sell 1, 2, or 3, or 4 more. Okay? That's it. Thank you very much. Sid, Monday, great opportunity to sell a whole spot. Okay. I do have a couple Paul Harris Fellow Awards I do want to give out. As we're winding down my year, I want to make sure I get these out. The first one is a Paul Harris Level 4. Betsy Carlson. And a Paul Harris Level 5. Stephanie McClendon.
unless you want to say anything. Hey,
George, been working on a case for about a year and a half, and it got really thin. I had a great case, and the stupid thing got the defendant bankrupt. So I took it another step further, and they sent me one surprising offer this morning. So I got paid back a whole bunch of money I thought I'd lost last year.
all right. 86 weeks till college, or let's see, 86 days till college football starts. So, anybody want to talk about their team? Julie, you want to talk about Tennessee? Okay. All right. I'm feeling this is light. This is really light. Larry, big UNC grad. Can't talk about football.
Actually, I want to talk about health today. I'm so glad to be back, and I have a great respect for everybody that's had pneumonia. It's not a common cold.
Wow.
So I'm glad.
Everybody give him a hand. Okay. Oh, there's one. Oh, yeah.
Why am I back? Back away a little bit. Sure. So we have a camera now. What's this about? We have a camera.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Oh, good.
All right.
So,
You're too
most of you remember Tom Burton in this club for a lot of years. 30 years he did a great job over at Adopting Nashville, which is a place where healing happens day in and day out through counseling, foster care, adoption, and domestic violence. And, Chandler Means was part of this club. We all know him, and he's moved on, but he's still there as a director. Hired me as a development director. I came in and opened my eyes up to what they've been doing really, really well for 53 years here in our city, and really Middle Tennessee. So I'm excited to be back and really walk in the footsteps of Tom Burton. And he did not only for adopting this club, and a lot of things that he was part of starting, and just the energy he brought. So I'm honored to be back and be part of what I missed for 20 some years, and now here I am for the next one. So thank you.
I'm Bill Coyne, and I'm Bill Walker's guest today, but I'm really thankful for seeing some old faces like the president of this club and my friends and all the new members that are here. I'm really thankful to be here. Thank you.
Good. Steve. Oh, do it. I love that shirt, man. Yeah, the Belmont. He's going to Belmont. All right. Okay. Okay.
Hey, Alan, share the mic.
Just the preview was phenomenal. 16 hours and 20 minutes starting September 16th. So, look for it on CBS. All right.
Well, I think that's going to do it. Is there anybody else? I don't believe so.
Thank you, Al.
Oh, yeah. It's my crying pink club. Oh, okay. Yeah.
First of all, I want to say we are a little more up right this morning, Rotary, because we just finished that right after everyone around the table. I am so thrilled to be here. It's really exciting to see everybody, and we really invite you guys to come 7 o'clock to the cafe for a great breakfast. So thanks for being so welcoming today.
Everybody give Deb a hand. That's truly done.
All right, thank you, Alan. Okay, so now I am going to introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker today is Dr. Craig Morrison, orthopedic chair at Centennial Hospital. Originally from Texas, Dr. Morrison completed medical school at Baylor University and the auto-offering fellowship in adult reconstructive surgery at New England Baptist Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. This program provides specialty training in joint replacement surgery. The mission of Southern Joint Replacement Institute is to provide state-of-the-art care in a professional and compassionate environment while honoring commitment to research and education in the field of joint replacement. SJRI is fully committed to providing personalized care and developing lasting relationships with patients and their families. As an author, Dr. Morrison has been featured in many leading joint replacement publications. His areas of focus are in primary and revision replacement surgery of the hip, knee, and shoulder. He is often sought out for his expertise with computer navigation techniques and is a frequent guest speaker for orthopedic groups across the nation and globe. He is currently the chief of orthopedics at TriStar Centennial Medical Center in Nashville. He has a special interest in medical mission work. He currently volunteers with the Sloan Health Clinic in Nashville and has performed joint replacements in Mexico, Peru, Ecuador, and India with the Walk Strong Foundation and Operation One. He and his wife Jennifer have 3 sons and live in Williamson County. Dr. Morrison enjoys golf and wake surfing in the summer. He also enjoys high school and college sports. He also took a look at our membership today and said, this is his audience. So, folks, welcome, Dr. Brent Morrison.
My hand, because that print was very small. That was a complete introduction. And I'm glad most of it was true, because when you showed it to me, I was nodding for you. So that's very impressive. Thank you very much for having me. As part of that introduction, I'm in a group that we do hip, knee, and shoulder replacement surgery, but we treat arthritis of those joints. So it's not all surgery, it's more about keeping people mobile as long as they can until they might need surgery. Our average age patient is about 64. So not to put everybody on the spot, but who here is over 60? Who's between the ages of 50 and 60? So you are the fastest growing demographic. You might say we have photo shirts. If you have joint pain, between 50 and 60, odds are it's probably related to arthritis. You might be thinking you need a joint replacement, and the answer is probably not just yet. Hopefully most of the people in here will have something to educate you on. So first, just a little general information, what arthritis is. In general, it means joint inflammation. But when we talk about arthritis specifically, we mean the degenerative loss of articular cartilage, so the cartilage that covers the ends of bone. And for the vast majority of people that we see, that is what's called primary osteoarthritis, which is typically a genetic predisposition, and then you have some environmental factors. So you hear about people that run marathons into their 80s and 90s and have arthritis. You wonder why? Because they had great genetics. And you think, well, I didn't run marathons, and I just didn't have knee pain. And if you have bad genetics, or you have an injury, so it's usually a combination of those two. What are the symptoms? Well, for hip and knee, it makes sense that it's a bone on bone, it hurts to walk on it. So the starting point of the hallmark is weight bearing pain. You have pain when you sit moving for a long time, you got to straighten out your knee, get up and walk on it, doesn't hurt, probably not arthritis. Usually you get stiffness with the shoulder, it's pain. It's, you know, walk on your hand, you're going to get the performer might have weight bearing pain, you have shoulder pain, but for most of us, it's not weight bearing pain, it's pain you lift, pain you move, always night pain, and always stiffness with that. This is a knee, so we talked about the articular cartilage. It's not pink in real life, but on the middle picture it's pink. That covers the end of the bone. It doesn't show up on an x-ray. When you take a scanning x-ray, you see a space between the bones. And that's how we diagnose arthritis. It's not fancy scans, it's not MRIs. We don't need MRIs to diagnose arthritis. space is gone, the cartilage must be gone. You got it right. That would make sense. You got pain when you walk on that. Same thing with hip. Different shape joint, conceptually it's the same. The cartilage covers the bone. If you take an X-ray of a normal joint, you see a space between the ball and socket. If you see the cartilage going out. And the shoulder. It's kind of like a mini hip, the ball and socket. So the space that's above the ball is where the rotator cuff is. So we expect to see space there unless you have a massive rotator cuff there. But the joint is between the ball and socket and again, no space. How do we treat it? Not always joint replacement. That's the good news. The bad news is you treat the symptoms. And despite all the hype about some things, we can't grow cartilage in people. So we are not yet curing arthritis, we're just treating the symptoms. If you have a terribly arthritic knee and you don't have pain, that's great. You're lucky. There's nothing to do. You can't prevent it from getting worse. You can't make it go backwards. So until you start having symptoms, pain with walking, stiffness, there's really not much to do but enjoy it. So how do we treat it? We treat it with activity modification. That's good old-fashioned. If it hurts, don't do it. So if your pain comes at the end of your 3-mile run 2 miles, or take up biking. Probably not ready for a joint replacement if you're only having pain with intense activity. Weight loss helps because a lot of our activities, like going up and down stairs, puts up to 5 times our weight through that day. So if you lose 10 pounds, it's like taking a 50-pound backpack off for some of your activity, and that can make a big difference. And then there's the medication. Tylenol is kind of underrated as a pain medicine. It actually works quite well until the end stage. Arthritis medicines or non-steroidals take care of the inflammatory part of the pain. And then injections. And the mainstay injection is cortisone and steroids because it's anti-inflammatory. It works, but it's temporary. So you can definitely expect 2 to 3 weeks out of the cortisone injection, maybe up to 3 or 4 months, so it's really not a long-term treatment strategy. But for those of you who do have arthritis in the room, and there probably are some, you know that you have kind of your baseline that hurts during the day, but then you may have a period of time where it gets a lot worse, and you swell up and you think this is the end. The cortisone shot's good for kind of knocking you back down to your baseline for another few years. There's also what's called visco supplementation or gel shots. Some people refer to them as booster cones, like a snake tongue. Will not make the pain less, but for some people, they're right on the cusp, they have pain, but it's affecting the function. If they can just get the function back, then they can tolerate the pain. That's what physical therapy is like. PRP, platelet plasma, that's not stem cells. Sometimes it's confused, but essentially that's where you have your own blood drawn, you have it kind of spun down so that the plasma comes out that has anti-inflammatory cells in it, and it's injected into the joint. It's not even touted as low carb, but it can help with pain. If you look at most studies, it does not really show much of a difference between like the gel shots, but there are a couple of studies that like combined a bunch of big studies called a meta-analysis, which at 6 months did not show a difference with the gel shots, but at a year it did. So maybe it lasts a little bit longer for pain, but it's not going to prevent the progression. It's not covered by insurance, and it can be anywhere from $500 to $1,000. Stem cells, how do you grow cartilage? The theory is that you take cells that can turn into anything, inject them into the joint, and they can become cartilage. You can change you and not have arthritis anymore. You can get it from your own blood, your own bone marrow, or from umbilical cord blood. The reality is there's no studies or claims that really back that it will regenerate cartilage. It's not FDA approved. It's very possible. And this is why. I mean, I think it makes sense that you could convince somebody that it might work. But the reality is the space between the bone and bad mechanical environment, and the bones only get squished together, and it's a bad biologic environment because it's inflammatory. So I kind of liken it to this. If you have very fertile ground, like a petri dish, throw seeds in there, let them grow. If you have a desert, and you have the best seeds in the world, you throw it in there, it's not going to turn to grass. An arthritic knee is like the desert for stem cells. When you put them in there, the anti-inflammatory properties may help with pain in the same way the cortisone is for a while, but it's not going to grow hard. If those things don't work, and you have daily pain that affects just your daily function, not just the 5th mile of your run, and it's a quality of life problem, you're not ready for joint replacement surgery. Hip, knee, shoulder. What are the advances? Well, probably the biggest advance is how we take care of the patient who has joint replacement. It sounds so obvious, but even a decade ago, at major joint replacement centers, everything was disjointed. Maybe the anesthesiologist, the nurses, the therapists, the surgeons, maybe medical consultants, and not everything was really coordinated. It differed from patient to patient. But the real advance is understanding and proving that this team approach actually leads to better outcomes. So for us, we have meetings all the time to coordinate care with the anesthesiologists, with the medical physicians to take care of the patients before and after, physical therapists, case make sure everything's going to be what you need in your home environment, so that that coordinated care, everybody is the expert in their own place that touches the patient, instead of a surgeon trying to manage your blood pressure. That doesn't work out very well. So that's probably one of the major advances. In anesthesia specifically, it's around pain management and kind of accelerated approach to rehab. Any of you have had surgery recently, you probably were told don't eat or drink after midnight, and your surgery might have been at 4 in the afternoon the next day. That's not very healthy. So we've learned a lot, especially in orthopedics, where we're not messing with your gut. It's not like general surgery. So you can eat up to 8 hours before surgery, and you drink liquids up to 2 hours. So you come in not in a dehydrated state. You feel better. We start the non-opioid pain medicine before surgery. We do nerve blocks before surgery, and we do spinal anesthesia instead of general, which is good for your brain, but it also numbs your legs completely. So when we do surgery, there is no pain at that time. And there's a lot of research around if you don't start the pain earlier, then the pain doesn't come later. So we do everything we can to block it. One of the advances we're looking at is something called iovera, which is a cold neuroablation technology. Essentially, it's a little procedure where you anesthetize the skin around the knee, and you kind of poke through in 3 different spots where there are cutaneous nerves that give sensation to the skin and even the deep structures in the knee, and you freeze those nerves. About a week or 2 before surgery, it lasts for about 3 months, and one of our docs is doing a little pilot study here to see if that may decrease pain medicine use afterwards. So one of the advances there. The other thing that is an advance and was mentioned in my bio, I do a lot of work with computer navigation. So you're not going to hear anything in this advances that has anything to do with the parts that we put in. There's some parts up here that you're welcome to look at afterwards, but we've almost maxed out on the quality of the implants. We have in knee replacement, the registry data now suggests that at 25 years, you have an 80% chance that your knee replacement is still in, has not been redone. With modern hip replacement, 15-year data says 90% chance. So we're butting up against the survivorship, which has to do with the parts. So most of the technology that we have now, we talk about, is how to make the experience better for the patient, or how to put the parts in better, more reproducibly.
because when they fail, it's usually from an outlier of surgical technique. Put it in poorly, and we want to kind of make that bell-shaped curve a line where everybody gets put in well. So computer navigation is like GPS for your bone and for the surgeon. We put markers on your bones. We tell the computer where the bones are, and then we tell the computer what angles we want to cut it at, and it allows us to do that precisely every time rather than, kind of whether you got a good artist or a bad artist. So that hopefully will make our survivorship curve and function afterwards even better. The next advance to that is robotic assisted surgery. So this is also computer navigation, where in the operating room we can see how the parts will work on the patient's knee and hip before we put them in. So we can plan the surgery, we can take it through a range of motion, and we can see how well the ligaments and the tension work together. And then the robot is not doing the surgery, but it assists us. So we make the cut, the saw is essentially attached to the robotic arm, so it doesn't allow any deviation from the plan. So again, more precise. This will allow us now to be more patient specific. So the old way of thinking with knee replacement specifically is make them all straight. So every leg's straight. Most people that have arthritis are either bow-legged or knock-kneed. And the reality is most people that don't have arthritis are either bow-legged or knock-kneed. Only 2% of the population without arthritis has a straight leg. But the classic teaching, because with regular instrumentation, it's much easier for us to see a right angle than 88 degrees with our eye. We've made it where we want to make every knee straight. And it works well. Knee replacement is one of the most satisfying procedures for patients, but there's still about 15% of patients that are not satisfied. And we think it's a lot because we're trying to cookie cut them into one way of doing it. And so the technology will allow us to be more patient specific, where if someone was born with a little bit of a bow leg and now they're more or arthritic, when we put the parts in, we put them back to kind of how they were meant to be, and we're not releasing ligaments and tissue that shouldn't have been released to get them straight, because that'll affect their function. So the technology is going to allow us to be a lot more patient specific. On the hip side, also using computer navigation, the ability to also use robotic surgery, but probably the biggest advances is more in tissue or muscle sparing approaches, anterior hip specifically. If we do a hip surgery with an incision on the front of the hip, then we avoid the big muscle in the back, the gluteus maximus. We don't have to split it. We basically can go between two muscles. So without injuring muscle, it's faster recovery, it's less pain, people get off their walkers a lot sooner, and because they're flat on the table instead of on their side, we're able to use live x-ray during surgery to make sure we get leg lengths and position precise as well. On the shoulder, big game computer-assisted surgery is a serious technology that's really changing things. Because if you look at his shoulder, this top right here, it looks like a golf ball and a tee. So the golf tee up there, that's a CT scan, and we have to put a hole in the middle of that precisely to anchor the part onto the socket or the glenoid. But it's a small target, and in surgery, it's not like you have visual access to that. You only see the front of the tee. You don't know where you're going. You have to feel, you have to use landmarks. But with the computer-assisted surgery, again, we can put the GPS marker. The computer says, this is the patient's three-dimensional anatomy, and then kind of like a video game, you can watch on the screen. As you move your drill, you can see it go right down the middle. And again, if we put the part in more precisely, you get better function, you get more longevity. So big deal. These are things that are available now to us. Things that may be coming but are not available, thinking outside the box here, a lot more in artificial intelligence and machine learning. not, I mean, some of it on the robotic side, but a lot just on data on the front end. So selecting patients, are they ready for surgery? Are they right for surgery? Is their risk too high? If you've got thousands of patients and their data is being entered, their post-op scores and results are being entered, the machines can learn very quickly that if you've got a patient with this problem, this problem, this problem, their complication rate is X, and you need to fix this before you do surgery. So that's going to be really already some apps out there that are doing this. In surgery, futuristic stuff, but being looked at are things like smart hammers. So some people's bones softer than others. So you can imagine if you've got a hammer or something like it, and when you drive something on the bone, if you hit it the very first time, the feedback to the hammer could be, it went in this far, so I know this bone is X, Y, and Z, and so it's going to hit it softer or harder depending on that patient. So a lot less risky there. And the other thing that is coming is augmented reality. You know about virtual reality, so you put the glasses on. But in surgery, you could put glasses on and have like the CT scan of the patient's anatomy sort of in front of you or overlaid onto their actual anatomy, so that when you're putting it in, it would be kind of like a video game. It's going to be very helpful for education. For instance, if a surgeon's doing something in China, you could be in an operating room in the States and watching them operate, and because they've got the glasses on, you could sort of insert yourself in the surgery. You couldn't actually touch the patient, but if they've sort of put a guide on the bone in the wrong place, they could see your hand and their glasses within the surgical field to say, no, you need to move it here, and then they could mirror that. So it's going to be great for education, great for virtual surgery potentially, if you're trying to take care of the people that are needing it and not enough doctors out there. So some of the advances in the future. Thank you for your time. I want to leave time for questions. This is my lovely family about 2 years ago. So I've got one that just finished his freshman year in college at USC in California. Don't know why, no ties. I think he wanted to get as far away without needing a passport. And then I've got a rising senior at BGA and a rising 8th grader at Poplar Grove in Franklin. So thank you very much for your time, and I do want to leave room for questions, and I'll stick around afterwards if anybody has questions. Yes, ma'am, please.
You talked about osteoarthritis.
Yes.
What about osteoporosis?
Right.
Women with hip issues, candidates for hip replacement necessarily in that case.
Sure.
And I say this because there's a history of my family. Unfortunately, my mom broke her hip, and there really wasn't any alternative but to have her hip replacement. And unfortunately, she did pass away from
Complications, yeah.
And so now my sister has really bad pain, and she's being called, she's not a candidate. And my sister's 10 years older, so I think it's sort of a cautionary tale that I'm going to be, because I have osteoporosis as well, we all do. So I'm curious, my mom's surgery was 15 years ago, so maybe it's become.
It's gotten a little better. So there are two different things. The arthritis is the cartilage. Osteoporosis is a bone quantity issue. The quality of the bone is normal. You just have less of it. So it's weaker and more susceptible to fracture. So if you have osteoporosis, you're not more prone to have arthritis. And by itself, osteoporosis doesn't cause pain. So her pain's probably coming from something else. The reason you want to treat osteoporosis or prevent it is so you do prevent hip fractures, wrist fractures, spine fractures. And so exercising, definitely weight-bearing exercise, and no smoking. Those are the two big ones. Yeah.
So did you do it sooner than later?
On replacement? No, I think you should wait until you literally have daily life-altering symptoms. Like for a hip, specifically, the things that you hear is I have trouble going upstairs. I have trouble getting to my shoes and socks. It's like I can't move it enough to put my shoes and socks on because it hurts so much. I go to the store and there's not a parking place in the front row, so I decide I'll go tomorrow. Those sorts of things. That's good. Yeah? Because she's too young?
No, my sister's 73.
Uh-huh.
There's on her phone or whatever. I don't know, but she does what she was told. So I think she needs to get a second.
I would agree with that. Yeah, sure. Back row? I don't know. Maybe Linus, I'll leave you in charge since you have the mic. I want to play favorites.
Could you give more example on the stem cell growth? And I just see a lot of companies starting and doing IPOs to fund stem cell and PRPs. And why is that growing with the threat of lack of results, but you still see companies opening every day to get into the business?
Well, I think there's two things. One, there is promise in other applications, certainly. When you talk about like neurodegenerative disorders, Parkinson's disease, MS, it's a lot further along in potential. For musculoskeletal applications like tendinitis, Achilles, rotator cuff, and even to augment healing after surgery for those procedures, it has a lot of promise. It does not currently, in its current form, work for arthritis, but I think there's a lot of research out, especially in animal models, looking at like biologic or biocomposable implants that would be soaked with stem cell. So you still have a surgical procedure, but the hope would be that over time, the scaffolding that you've supplied and the shape of the bone gets replaced with that material. So there is promise, it's just not there yet. Yes.
For someone with arthritis in a particular joint, if they can either manage the pain or power through it, continued use of that joint through exercise, strength training, or cardio, are you increasing the damage and exacerbating the problem by that repetitive use? Should you back off?
Depends on where you are. So if you're already kind of bone on bone, there's not really any more damage you can do. You can make it hurt more, can rub bone away, but if it's the last thing between you and a joint replacement is just you saying I'm going to do it, then there's no damage you can do that's going to affect the surgery or make the outcome any less. If you have mild to moderate arthritis and you have pain, then you can accelerate it if you're doing too much impact. So instead of running, bike, or swim, instead of doing heavy lifting, you should do like low weight, high rep things, but you should stay mobile. Because joints and cartilage are nourished by motion. So you do want to stay active, you just want to kind of modify a little bit.
Okay, since big data is a big thing and it can help predict the future of how you might treat patients and other things, when you're doing your electronic medical records, are you asking every patient that you see to have permission to use that data in the future?
Yes, we do have an IRB consent for every patient when they come in to give us permission to be able to use their data for studies or anything down the road. I'm happy to stick around as well. I know you guys got to get back to work, but I don't, so I'll stay and wait.
Dr. Morrison, thank you. Accept this as a token of our appreciation for coming to speak to us today. And if you would sign this book, we read to first graders.
Oh, I definitely will.
And we will tell them about your visit today.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
As Dr. Morrison said, he will stick around for any other questions or for any of you other folks that want free medical advice. Please help us put the tables and chairs back and where they go. And don't forget, there is a board meeting immediately following this meeting. If there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, we are adjourned.